Hey everyone, Norm here. A little bit of a spoiler warning before we start this episode, because today we are going to be reviewing and talking about Star Trek Picard, the pilot episode that will be dropping today on CBS All Access. Now, if you're watching the video, we will be talking about the show, and when we get to spoilers at around the 20-minute mark, we will turn the TV behind us red, and when spoilers are done, the TV will switch back to the tested logo. If you're listening to the audio and you want to skip all talk of spoilers, you can skip ahead to around the 47 or 48-minute mark of the episode, or if you want to jump directly to spoilers, you can go jump ahead to around the 20-minute mark. Just a little bit of heads up, and in the future episodes, we'll save all our spoiler talk to the end of the episode. Enjoy. Okay, let's start the show. For Thursday, January 23rd, 2020, welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to a very, very special episode of This Is Only a Test. We are through the Nexus. I'm Norm here with Jeremy Williams.
Hello, Norman.
And Kishore Hari.
Hello.
Could you imagine, gentlemen, 17 years ago, that we, 17 years later, in the year 2020, in the 21st century, we would be talking about a season premiere of a Star Trek show starring Sir Patrick Stewart himself, Jean-Luc Picard, because Picard is out.
That's a good question. Would you have imagined at the time that Patrick Stewart would be everyone's favorite captain 20 years later?
Oh, I think if you don't remember, in the early 90s, when Star Trek Next Generation concluded, he was the favorite captain already.
Right. But at the time, you saw more Star Treks coming.
In the future, yes.
Yeah.
DS9 was already airing, and Sisko was a very unconventional captain, of course. Favorites for many people. Janeway was still on the horizon, first female captain for leading a TV series. And Enterprise, yeah. And then no one really liked Pike the way we like Pike right now, post Star Trek Discovery, and of course, it's a topic worth revisiting at some point, reevaluating now both movie and TV captains, maybe for a future episode. But today, we're going to talk about Star Trek Picard, because as you're listening to this right now, as this episode is released, who knows when you're listening to this, hopefully as soon as the episode drops, but Star Trek Picard is out globally, or at least in the United States. I don't know the release schedule globally, but CBS Interactive dropped them at 9 p.m. Wednesday night Pacific, 12:01 a.m. Eastern. Now we're recording this a day early, so maybe our fingers are crossed that there were no problems with the release of the episodes, but it doesn't matter, because folks, are here to tell you, the three of us in this room, we've seen the future.
I appreciate that early in 2020, the producers at CBS decided this year is garbage. We're going to transport you to the 2300s.
The end of the 2300s. It's going to be the turn of the century at some point. They're going to go to the 25th century. Star Trek is for so long been about the 24th century, late 23rd century, that I'm excited for them to bridge into the 25th century. How are we going to talk about Picard? Now let's be upfront. I'm being honest. We have seen the show. We have seen the first 3 episodes of the show. There are reviews out right now. Other people have talked. And for subscribers of the channel, we're going to do a full Off-World episode still to be recorded, where Kishore, you, I, and Ariel will do a deep dive into the episodes, and also perhaps partake in some Chateau Picard red wine.
2386, good vintage.
Good vintage indeed.
I think we should...
It's not the 84 though.
Give our general thoughts and then do a kind of spoiler dive into episode 1.
Okay. So let's set up the premise for people who, if you've not been following the development of the show. This is on CBS Interactive's subscription-based streaming service. It's going to be 8 episodes.
Is that what it's called?
Believe.
Interactive? I thought it was All Access.
Oh, sorry. CBS All Access. CBSI is the name of the company. We're talking about a separate thing earlier. CBS All Access. My apologies. It's 9 episodes? Is that right?
I thought it was 8.
I thought it was 8 too. But released weekly, much like Star Trek Discovery. It is starring Patrick Stewart. We know that members of the Next Generation cast members will appear. You've seen them in trailers. Most notably, if you saw the Comic-Con trailer from last year, Brent Spiner makes an appearance as Data in some capacity, but it's largely about a mission he takes with a relatively new cast of characters. It is set, of course, 20 years after Star Trek Nemesis. And one of the reasons that Patrick Stewart said he wanted to finally return to Picard, not only because it felt right in today's day and age, Star Trek being a beacon of hope and also science fiction being a mirror to reality, as it always is, but also there were storylines and parts of the character he felt was unfinished, and now was perhaps a right time to tell a new story to reflect on those arcs and those threads, which the show does.
Yep.
So
General thoughts.
All right. Let's start with Jeremy, because Jeremy, you most recently binge watched as a family, your entire family, Star Trek Next Generation. Were you able to catch up on the movies?
Not recently. I would say over the past 5 years, we've watched all of Next Generation. And then this past week, I did my homework with my son. We watched all 4 Next Generation movies.
Oh, tell us about that. How did he and you, because you had never seen the movies.
Were bad.
Yeah, of course, I've seen some of the movies. I thought I'd saw 3 of them. I knew I hadn't seen Nemesis.
Okay.
Which, by the way, most important film to watching Picard.
That's a really good point.
Right.
I'd seen Generations when it came out, and I had seen, obviously, First Contact. We watched those, enjoyed them. They were fine. I wouldn't say the special effects aged terribly well.
I think First Contact special effects aged really well.
They're fine. But then you go on to Insurrection, special effects, not so much.
Not so much.
Feels a little 1950s when the Enterprise crashes into the planet, and you got...
that's
model.
an actual effect.
It feels like an episode.
Exactly.
That's in Generations.
And no, that's an Insurrection.
Insurrection,
when they
the Enterprise.
Was it not?
No, Generations at the end is when the saucer section crashes into the trees.
You are absolutely right. They blur together when you watch them one after another.
But Insurrection does feel like an extended episode, which I think is not a fault.
No, actually, I liked Insurrection. I felt like Insurrection went back to what you were saying, like a mirror to society, and it certainly had a point to make. And I like that about Star Trek. I like that it tries to make a sociological point. It tries to show you something about your world that you live in and make you think a little differently about it.
Steps on its future soapbox.
That said, it's an odd movie, the odd number, which makes it a bad one, and it did get like a 50-something Rotten Tomato. As did Nemesis, which I thought was much better.
You like Nemesis.
I did.
Nemesis is perhaps the most controversial.
Is it?
Because it's the most action-oriented. People really, Star Trek fans, some Star Trek fans really don't like the dune buggy aspect
Dune
of it.
buggy is real weird.
It was written by, I think, John Logan, who had done like Last Samurai and a bunch of big, sweeping epic movies. And it felt like a lot of, we're going to put spoilers for Nemesis because that's a 20-year-old movie, but the death of Data was left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths.
So they discover a new android that's named B4.
Oh, how clever.
Which is a Data lookalike who is a prototype of
not
Data.
like Lore, though.
Right, which was odd. And clearly not as mentally capable as Data. Mm-hmm. And Data, at one point, this is interesting, downloads his entire memory into Before.
His engrams.
Thinking maybe that will make Before like me. And it doesn't. However,
how naive.
There is that element going into Picard of Data has been backed up. And I wonder how that's going to manifest. That's one of the most interesting threads to me because that's the one thing of Data that still exists.
It's a lingering thing in at the end of it's a little bit of a flicker of hope because despite the sacrifice, you have to, if you look at the character of B4, I think it's one of the best scenes in the movie, despite all the Shinzon stuff. And that's the Tom Hardy clone of Picard, Romulan Tal Shiar plot. That
very overacted.
Very, not great at all. It's intrigue in a way that I did not want intrigue. It tried to do Star Trek VI, Undiscovered Country, which was political intrigue in a very Shakespearean way with the Klingon Empire. But here it's way too overwrought.
But the consciousness transfer thing, it reminded me a lot of Bones and Spock.
Sorry, yeah, absolutely. I think that was intentional, and it's a very poignant moment when at the very end of the movie, not only do you have Riker and Troy married now, moving off the Enterprise finally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of unbelievable that, in this time of post-Dominion War, that Riker would not have taken a command of his own ship, but it's because of his loyalty. I mean, he had the option of commanding his own ship for so many years throughout the series, but they finally take, I believe, the Titan is where they leave the Enterprise. And so there's a whole changing of the guard, and Picard has this moment in his ready room where he's telling B4 about Data and the importance of Data to Picard.
Yeah.
It was his son, the son he never had.
Yeah.
And we know family and legacy is this huge thread for Picard's journey, and which is shown not only in the Star Trek episode Family, after Best World Throws Part 2, when he goes back to where you first see the Chateau Picard and you see his nephew Rene, but then also in Star Trek Generations when you hear that his brother and his nephew had died in a fire, and he is essentially the last Picard. So Data is his surrogate son, sacrificed himself, and so now he has this kind of weird, dumbed down, not as advanced android, no real personality, but it's not Data, even though it maybe has some element of Data.
Right. And when in that scene where you're talking about in Nemesis, where he tries to communicate to Data how important
Before.
I'm sorry, when he tries to communicate to before the importance of that relationship, and before just doesn't get it.
He does. I know, it's so sad.
You can see Picard realize that like the line of communication is broken, and he feels sad about that. And I feel, and not to spoil anything, but that exists. That kind of scene exists in Picard, and I love that. I love that Picard is trying to reach this high-minded level with people that can't reach him back.
So did you like it? I can't tell yet.
Well, no, I'm just saying I did my homework.
We're still in the homework part. Okay.
So yes, I did. I thought Picard was really good. I thought it was dense. I thought it was very different from Star Trek. We've been warned about that. If you watch any of the interviews with Patrick Stewart, you see that he very clearly says this is a reaction that he has as Patrick Stewart to the state of the world today, and that not everything is right with the Federation 20 years later. It's not all good. And I felt like that was what I prepared. And having seen a little bit of Discovery, I felt like I was expecting more of a PG-13 kind of vibe.
Discovery is a really great comparison because CBS All Access now has, and they have in the works, we've talked about this, multiple live-action Star Trek shows, including an anime show as well. Discovery is the show you're watching if, one, you love the kind of TOS era, because of course it has the original Enterprise, you got Spock and Pike, but also it's a show about a crew on a ship. Right, it's a classic Star Trek show, a crew on a ship on missions, a season-long mystery arc that they then have to go solve. You have kind of aliens of the week. You go on away missions. That's your classic template for a Star Trek show. Picard, it seems like, is very different in that it is not that as it seems so far. I mean, the first episode happens on Earth. He's on the vineyard. It's about a one man's journey, and it really is almost not only just a more personal story in that regard, but the perspective isn't an ensemble perspective.
Right.
It is just him, and he is helpless. He doesn't have all the resources that he did. He couldn't just say, make it so, and have, a bridge crew to advise him on all these things. He's almost just wandering.
It's not Jean-Luc Picard that we left by any stretch. You meet Jean-Luc Picard as kind of, I would almost say, a broken spirit. Like you can clearly see he's disillusioned. He is isolated. He lacks sort of the charisma and just sort of verve that he had when he was captain of the Enterprise. And in a way, it's like melancholy. I love how the show so far treats him as if he is 20 years older, because the pacing of the show, the things that he's able to do, the way people interact with him, treat him as this kind of like older person, and in a way push him aside at many points.
Were you?
It was really hard to see,
because I think a lot of people, when we first heard Picard coming back, we know him as the captain. I think in a lot of our heads, we imagine, okay, he's going to be in command of a ship. We're going to get all the feelings of this brightly lit Enterprise D, or even Enterprise E feel, it's not, but it's not that. It's not Next Generation. It feels like a completely different type of show, even though we see familiar faces, we hear familiar names, and it's shot very differently. I mean, I was watching it with Danica, and it's like it's shot almost like an HBO show.
Well, I feel like that's a matter of just technology improving, and camera technology becoming more accessible, and just and the budgets of shows like this getting higher.
I think not only that, but because it's not on a studio set lot, it's not on a set. Right, it's not even like Discovery where you have a bridge and you can only shoot. When you shoot an ensemble crew on a bridge set or a ready room set or an engineering, bay, it looks a certain way. Here, it's on location.
This is a part of the show I didn't actually like, is how it was shot. It was reminiscent of the 2009 Abrams reboot. There's a lot of like lens flaring, kind of like general like oversaturation, I thought. So that wasn't my favorite thing, but that's a minor point compared to the story and the pacing. It sets up a story. I would say, without getting into spoilers, episode 1 paints a picture of Picard as a very different Jean-Luc Picard, and it sets up some minor mystery conspiracy, I would say, and leaves you on quite the little cliffhanger.
So, Jeremy, you mentioned doing the homework. Before we get into spoilers, because we will turn on the red alert light and talk into details, at least about the first episode. Yeah, let's do that on the TV. Let's talk about some essential homework, because if you are maybe holding off, or if you haven't rewatched Star Trek in a long time and you want to get into Picard, or you have maybe someone you're going to watch it with, I think you can still watch the show, and they try to do the Watchmen thing and feed you enough exposition to let you know what's going on. But there are definitely things that you're going to miss if you haven't seen some particular episodes. So I'm just going to list off, if you have time in the weekend, if you can hold off on watching the first episode of Picard, or if you want to watch episode 1 first and then rewatch the stuff and go back, I would recommend...
Or wait to the end of the season and binge them all.
Oh, yeah. That's 10 episodes, by the way. Yeah. Not 8 episodes. Okay. 10 episodes of Picard. I would absolutely recommend that you watch, and it doesn't have to even be in this order, Best of Both Worlds, Part 1 and 2. That's the episode Next Generation, season finale of season 2, and, 3, season 3, and then, opening of season 4. Measure of a Man, absolutely should watch.
Now, are these just great episodes you're recommending, or ones that tie into Picard?
I think both. Okay. Both. That tied to his character.
Okay.
And also some plot points.
Okay.
You should absolutely watch Borg.
For sure.
That's the episode where Hugh appears, and of course, Hugh, we know, is Jonathan Del Arco is on the show. Mm-hmm. You should also watch
the reunification episode, I would say.
Yes, reunification part 1 and 2. Totally. Star Trek Nemesis, absolutely.
Chain of Command Part 2, to see him broken.
Yes. Inner Light, I think it's worth watching. And then also, I'm going to name 2 episodes that I think you should watch. The Offspring, which is season 3, episode 16. This is a data-centric episode, as well as The Battle. I want to say.
You guys ask a lot of your students.
That's the one with the Stargazer.
That's a lot of homework, guys. Just watch Star Trek Nemesis.
Star Trek Nemesis, I think, is absolutely, maybe watch that as the last thing you watch.
I mean, honestly, watching
Picard,
I really felt like the whole team on Picard watched Star Trek Nemesis and said, "What do we do now?" Like, I really felt there's parallels that go beyond like the plot, like that.
Well, we had talked about last week how the J.J. Abrams Kelvinverse, the place in which the Kelvinverse diverts from the main Star Trek continuity, that itself is a big kind of plot point and a thing that's referenced and definitely talked about in Picard. which is, of course, the destruction of Romulus, the supernova.
So that happens after Nemesis.
Oh, many years after Nemesis. If you read the Countdown comics that led up to the 2009 Star Trek, you find out that not only was it Spock and various members of the crew of the Enterprise D in the Next Generation were trying to save Romulus from. To save the Romulans from the destruction of Romulus. Spock, of course, fails in sending the red matter into the sun. He's too late. Sun goes supernova, and that's what causes Nero to adopt Borg technology, go back in time, and then create the Kelvinverse.
Right. But that event is common to both.
Is consequential for Picard, and not only for Star Trek 2009.
Yeah.
And the Kelvinverse.
Okay.
But the Countdown comics aren't technically continuity anymore. For example, in the Countdown comics, I think B4 has, if you want to know what happens to B4, in the fans' headcanon, if you read the Countdown comics, I believe he elevates to become a captain.
What?
He becomes Data, essentially, at some point. And that is not a path I think this show is necessarily taking.
Well.
All right. Is it time for spoilers?
Yeah. You going to put something on the screen? What you got?
I'll make it red. Hang on.
I'll make it red. Can you make it flash?
Let's not make things flash.
Okay. That's a good idea.
Okay. While Kishore is making the background red, how do we want to? There we go.
It's red.
It's red for sure. How do we want to talk about? We're just going to talk about the first episode.
First of all, you guys are gluttons. I can't believe you did it. Well, you were given access to 3 episodes. You didn't have to watch them. No one else in the world is going to be able to watch all 3 episodes. All we can discuss is the first one.
Plenty of people have watched 3 episodes. The reviewers have.
If you are given 3 Star Trek episodes featuring Patrick Stewart, you watch 3 episodes of Star Trek.
It's not like this is a test. It's not like CBS All Access PR was like, we're going to put 3 episodes in front of you and test your restraint. And you get the reward if you show that you'd only watch one episode.
You guys are a couple of hyenas who found some carry-on the highway and you couldn't help yourselves.
This is a testament to the quality of the show.
You're right.
We were on Slack, and we didn't all watch it together. We were at home independently, and we were on Slack, and we started at roughly the same time, and 3 hours, 2.5 hours later, these are 44, 45-minute episodes.
Right.
Both Kishore and I were like, well, I guess we watched the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, the thing is, I want to be able to talk about it with all the mystery that is left at the end of the first episode, which
There's
our friends,
plenty of mystery.
Our friends who have also seen the first episode will also be on that page. I don't want you to have a look in your eye with just you wait.
I can do a good job of
I feel like I don't
my-
know anything after 3 episodes, so I'm not helping you.
All right. For the record, though, I've only seen the first one.
Okay.
Twice.
I liked it. I was really surprised at the pacing, and I was surprised how quickly we got
did
into
not
it.
linger on mystery. Picard is not a dumb person, and I'm so glad the writers move the story along where it's not like Picard scenes of him asking questions for so long, what's going on? They got to him deducing who people were and what the plot was, and it got the show moving.
In the first, we should talk about the first scene. First scene, we get Data, and we get Mars blowing up in the first scene.
Mm-hmm. The poker scene.
Yeah, and this is obviously a dream, which you see. But at the point, it sets up the entire mystery arc of the show immediately, and you get his, even though it's not revealed till later, you get his disillusion, the moment of his disillusionment.
Yeah.
Picard says at one point that the dreams are wonderful, but the waking up is what he doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you definitely, still living in the past somewhat, or at least that's where the baggage is. Are you sad that the Data appearance is a dream sequence, the 2 Brent Spiner appearances?
I loved it. I
think it makes more sense. After being spoon-fed fan service by Star Wars over the last few years, this was such a good use of fan service where it was light touch in service of a story. It's not a Data coming back to life and look, it's Data. It was
and Brent Spiner's listed as a special guest star, which means he's not going to be on every episode.
Yeah.
That's right. And there will be special guest stars for the other cast members as well.
It wasn't Data for Data's sake. It was leveraging their relationship to further the story of where Picard is now.
Right.
And also it helped communicate some of the new plot development. They filled out some of the details. So, of course, they tie the one of the big events is the destruction of Romulus. They go right at it. There's this Federation News Network interview, this Holo channel interview where Picard, who has not spoken publicly about this, has given lectures about his time as captain and admiral, but is upfront about, what he sees as the tragedy of the Federation abandoning the Romulans. And this is where we get the allusions to modern day world, right? This is about one of those powerful, organizations, nations, the Federation as a peacekeeping entity and it's kind of like the UN of space UN, not helping with this rescue and refugee effort and abandoning one of their enemies.
I like how they
they
did not let that be black and white either.
What?
The whole, you got his righteous anger about the Federation abandoning all those Romulans that are going to die in the supernova. But you also heard from the other side, there was tens of thousands of people that died on Mars that day. And so it wasn't this Picard's definitely right. There's some element of gray there, which I think makes it even more powerful.
I don't know, though. I think that there is more to it than that. I mean, in terms of Picard being right, I think he is more right than that. I don't think it's as even as 50-50, because at one point, the newscaster, who I think is probably my most hated person on the entire episode, despite the fact that there are murderers.
Yes, no doubt. that she's glib and has a punchable face kind of look to her.
And she manipulates Picard into, and she crosses a line that she promises not to cross in that interview. But at one point, she says, but there were, Picard says there were millions of lives at stake, and
almost hundreds of
900 million.
Yeah,
it was exactly. The number, something like that.
Right.
And she says, "You mean Romulan lives?" And he says, "No, lives."
Yeah.
And I just felt like that was such a powerful moment.
Yeah.
And that speaks to where the Federation might have been headwise. It's thinking of Romulan lives as less than.
Yes, and the utopia. I mean, it kind of goes against a little bit of the Gene Roddenberry utopia, but the world is more complex now than ever, and the show really leans into that. The Federation is not this beacon of perfection, right? And many Star Trek shows have kind of shown the dark side of the Federation, but this isn't even a covert dark side. This is just Federation policy. They have to make these tough decisions, and it is politics. And but you also have this Mars revelation. This is a new plot point where at the same time that the Romulan planet, the Romulus was being destroyed, the rescue operation was comprised of ships that were being built at the Federation shipyards on Mars, which is something that's been long alluded to, off-planet shipyards. And that shipyard was destroyed by a group of rogue synthetics. So this is the other big plot line. Not only are we talking about Romulans, we're also talking about
there's a lot of
new world where robots like Data are banned.
Because of this mysterious
attack, this terrorist attack,
right,
on the shipyards, which claimed the lives of 90,000 people.
Right. Now, do we know what happened to those synthetics that attacked? Were they all destroyed?
Don't know.
We don't know.
Don't know.
But we know that whole project in Federation to create and research synthetics is shut down.
Yes, and presumably these are synthetics. I think it borrows some of the storyline from the EMH storyline from Voyager. So in Voyager, the Data character is essentially the emergency medical hologram played by Robert Picardo. Right, he is the robot, the avatar that tries to learn to be human, but really is a computer system, has its own version of a personality. That's the kind of the Data Spock type archetype. Mm-hmm. And in one of the subplots, you have this idea that the EMH system was flawed because all the programming was not great, because it was a reflection of the creator, Zimmerman, named after the production designer of Star Trek, Herman Zimmerman, I believe. And that it was the personality characteristics of the EMH hologram were too vain, and they weren't great doctors or whatever. And you saw in Star Trek First Contact, you had the EMH make an appearance. Remember the question goes, I swear I never used one of these.
Fan service.
And they bring up the EMH. One of the Voyager episodes show that the holograms themselves get like in the episode Measure of a Man, they are they are relegated to this less than human subservient status, and they are sent to work in the mines, essentially. It's kind of a far-fetched idea. You send we have these extra holograms that used to work on ships now. What are you going to do with them? Let's send them to work in labor camps in these mines. And it's kind of on the nose. But the Voyager EMH becomes this kind of a heroic Spartacus figure for them, and his independence and his development as a character gives them inspiration to kind of not necessarily revolt, but also become more self-aware and self-sufficient. And I think that storyline is grafted onto the synthetics here, where you have the lingering effects of you never find out what Federation really thinks of Data outside of the episode Measure of a Man, which we mentioned earlier, right? He's a unique android. We know there are no androids like him that Sung created aside from lore. We don't know.
B4.
B4,
yeah.
Right? But it turns out now that androids were created to be subservient in the Federation.
Right.
Before, of course, the Mars attack, 14 years ago, before Picard show. And so you didn't have androids on bridge crews as officers of ships.
You mean after Data?
After Data.
Now, would you consider Data to be subservient?
No.
Because in Measure of a Man, he fights for his independence.
And exactly. And
but
he's declared a self-actualized person.
Why wouldn't that then be a part of Federation policy?
Because they couldn't. I don't know if they could have created more datas because there was no Sung anymore.
So you're saying that the androids that they created didn't have that sense of
that is the implication
and independence.
Yes, and that is, I think, what we're learning is that the very fact of the matter that the android, the synthetics that they're calling them on the show, were maybe they did have some kind of agency because they led this revolt or led this attack. Right. But the fact that they were not on bridge crews, and you did see, we've seen in Star Trek on bridge crews, like characters that look like they may have been robots, but they're all, if you look at the backstory and what's been written on Memory Alpha, they're all kind of augmented, humanoid characters. They're not full synthetic characters. This kind of lays out the show's vision of what has happened to the state of robot-human affairs in the 24th century.
What did you think of his handlers, his helpers, the Romulans?
I love them.
They're great.
They're some of my favorite characters on the show so far.
I love the juxtaposition of taking his most ardent enemy from TNG and making them his strongest advocates in this show. They are like the voice of his conscience, his memory of who he was. They constantly are building him up.
Yeah, and then previously when we saw the news of the casting and some of the synopses, you assume that they're just kind of the shop hands and they help run the vineyard, but they're much more than that. They're advisors. They're clearly refugees. They're clearly remnants of the rescue operation. And so these are a man and a woman, Alaris and Zaban, and they are badass. I really like their characters. They are the Riker and Troy of this show so far.
I definitely want more of them. Like I really, the way that they believe in Picard is clear, and I want to see them more in the show. I don't know if they end up being in the show more because, as we saw in the trailers, he goes off world. So I don't know if how much of a factor they are. But I hope more.
Jeremy, what did you think of the cliffhanger?
What you mean, the twin? Mm-hmm. First of all, I think that the whole twin thing was really well interwoven into the show. With the foreshadowed by the two paintings, and the symbol itself of the interlocking rings. I thought that was great. I didn't see that coming, but I thought that was beautifully interwoven. And on the one hand, I think that the fact that there is this twin out there that at the end of the show is great for the plot. But I was a little taken aback by how relieved Picard was to discover that, and as if that relieved some sorrow about the passing of Daj.
Yeah, and the Daj character is, I think, it is tragic because so much of this first episode focuses on her, and clearly like her tragic life, right? And it feels like stunt plotting, where they introduce a character, you think it's gonna be a main character, and suddenly she's killed off.
Right. And sadly, because like we love her, like that, she is incredible to watch when she activates.
Right.
And she's like Jason Bourne in the fact she doesn't know she has these abilities, and you want more of that. The ending, well, I guess the first ending of the show where she dies was really surprising because you think she's going to be a main character.
I definitely was like, I audibly was like, what?
Yeah, did that just happen?
And then it fades to black because they built in commercial breaks.
Right.
And you're like, what is going on? I was like,
now we're experiencing what Gary felt when he said he used to watch Star Trek Next Generation in the UK, and they had different, BBC did, or Sky One or whoever broadcast Next Generation did not have commercials between those, so it faded to black, and he didn't understand why.
Right.
Streaming service viewers we will have that same experience because we were not getting these syndicated commercial breaks.
It was a particularly long pause. I felt that too. I was like, thank God there's more to this show.
Yeah.
But so we go to the ending, and she's aboard this Romulan reclamation site.
That's a big plot point.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So we end up there, and this is the last scene of the episode.
This is the last shot. This is a cliffhanger.
And this mysterious man who appears to have some sense of authority walks up to the twin, who has different hair but is clearly the same actress.
Yes.
And introduces himself, and he tries to forge this friendship, and seems to be manipulating her into opening up to him. And then the camera pans back.
Pulls out and out and out and out and out, and the reclamation site.
It's like a power of 10.
Oh, it is.
It's
cubed.
It's a Borg cube,
it's
right?
10 cubed.
Is it a Borg cube?
It is a Borg cube.
Yeah, it's totally a Borg cube.
But it's not the Borg cube from First Contact, is it?
So this is unknown, right? Because the Borg cubes have been shown on Next Generation. There's definitely the one that was showed, obviously, the very appearance of the Borg, the Q episode. But the most famous one is the one at Wolf 359. That's the one that was put to sleep by Riker's command. It did explode. And then the one in First Contact also exploded. And what was left was the sphere, which then was also destroyed in the past.
Right.
So
I kind of think there's a different cube.
I mean, there are many, many cubes.
Different cube.
Well, I would also think
the cube that was brought back with Voyager. Voyager flew through that and destroyed it too.
I would think this is a cube that's in around Romulan space somewhere.
Jurisdiction
so
is
be a separate
Romulan.
one. I don't know.
It's odd that it has like that second Death Star missing part of it.
Well, what does reclamation mean?
Where it's they still under construction, or has it been destroyed?
I think disassembled makes a lot of sense. I think that if you're if you're the Romulans and your homeworld's been destroyed and you are kind of rebuilding what used to be a great empire, and one of the things you're known for is military might, and you have one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy on your doorstep in your what used to be your space, who knows, but you of course take it apart. And it goes to why Nero's ship, the Narada, had Borg technology explained in the Countdown comics, and maybe this is where that came from.
You see, I never thought of the cube as being a Death Star. I thought of the Borg themselves as being devastating like ants.
But you think about the resource isn't just the raw materials, and it's a massive. If you compare the Borg cube to any starship,
right?
The amount of mass there can be harnessed. People, drones, right? There's clearly drones that that are there that they can do something with, or parts. Who knows?
Yeah.
But also, you're missing the point. Is that this twin sister is not a Romulan.
Yeah.
Why is she there? Are the Romulans working with the Federation here?
That's what struck me about the cliffhanger, is that it didn't seem like a CIA black site kind of place. It was like a salvage op.
Well, and
an organized corporate salvage op.
We didn't talk about the people who are after Dash, who are Romulan.
Yes.
And yet her twin sister is working on this ship with Romulans.
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect. There are Romulans who have gone rogue on one side or the other.
Yep. And I think this is, again, going back to the Nemesis story. This goes back to the Romulan, the covert ops the Romulans run, the Tal Shiar.
And when Picard comes, is revived and he regains his consciousness, they tell him that he was the only one on the feeds.
Yeah.
So clearly Federation is in on this too.
That was a big jump where I thought, I wish they had written this in, because he wakes up from that explosion, and that was a big explosion.
Yeah.
Like Patrick Stewart's kind of old, and you can tell when they swap in a stunt double for the running scenes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. But that was a massive, he's like thrown.
Yeah.
Right. And, you see him walking with a cane earlier on in the episode.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that looks brutal.
Brutal.
And suddenly he wakes up back in France. I'm like, does he have some like emergency teleporting tech where as soon as he's in danger,
Oh, that's funny.
he gets teleported back home to his caretakers
It is cool how fast they can get from Paris to Boston to
instant.
Okinawa.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
We have transporter technology. Of course they can.
Exactly.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah,
But it does-
it says like there was a police report. He woke up in a hospital or whatever.
You know what I was
Just
thinking
don't
about
show it.
when that happened, though? I was like, doesn't the Federation give a crap about Jean-Luc Picard being like wandering around on top of their buildings and getting blown up?
Well, it's a cover up. Like they're clearly covering that up if they're saying he's the only thing that was on their feeds, because it's not a matter of having a cloaking device. Like there were explosions.
Let's talk about who else appears in the show. There's the new characters. Right?
Sure.
Learning of the twin, that happens at this institute, which is clearly a lot of this is shot in Anaheim, right at the Anaheim Convention Center. So
I knew I recognize this
100%.
building, and I don't know
that's
why.
where the StarCraft 2 finals were last year. And it's that stadium. It's not Okinawa. It's Anaheim.
Yeah.
And also, you've seen in the trailer, the Anaheim Convention Center, where like WonderCon and D23 is. Like that's what they use for Starfleet headquarters, Starfleet Command. But Allison Pill's in this show, and she's a new character, Dr. Agnes Jurati.
One of the last remnants of the synthetics operation.
Yes, and you get you get the answer, Jeremy.
I do? To what? What? To what?
Well,
you're wondering if this is in episode 1 or not. Here it is. It's happening.
Maybe that's the case.
He's doing some math.
I'm doing some math. She's an interesting character.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that she's not going to be relegated to a plucky scientist comic relief that we did get with the Tilly character in this Discovery, but so far I like her character.
Well, it's revealed that they have B4 there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You get the answer to the B4 question.
And apparently almost all of what data downloaded into B4 has been lost.
Yeah. So B4 did not get to grow and
Right.
become data.
But she talks about how, given 1,000 years, they would have attained this synthetic, purely biological synthetic with a personality and independent sense.
Like it would be sentient.
Right,
Yeah.
sentience. If they had another 1,000 years. But if they only had access to a bit of data, in theory, they could have done it.
that's a little bit of voodoo tech.
Yeah,
talk.
but it's weird. You watch the intro cinematic,
Yeah.
the CG thing that they do for the credits,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what's happening. There's a little
shard.
piece of skin that then gets manufactured. You see the DNA, you see the eye.
Oh, I didn't make that connection.
The eye formed.
Let's talk about that
Nice.
sidebar of that for a second. The intro
Oh, and the theme.
I found it unremarkable.
I did not care for the theme either.
I was
really, I'm with you.
My heart, stomach sank. I'm like,
It's not that evocative Star Trek music.
It isn't. I really missed Jerry Goldsmith in that moment. I needed
At the same time,
yeah.
This show isn't that
No.
kind of show.
And if you look at like the tone of the theme for Picard, it's the tone of mystery. It definitely has a mystery angle to it, and then it goes into these strings that are almost Lord of the Ring, like let's look into his legacy and past. But it wasn't triumphant. If they were going to go something more somber, I'd wish that they had done like Inner Light or the flute song, and then kind of like
Too much fan service.
turn that into something more orchestral. I don't know.
It's not my favorite, but maybe it's going to match the tone of the show. Last thing I'll say is I liked how the first episode didn't get smashed in with all these characters we saw in the trailer. We didn't see Jerry Ryan.
Right.
We didn't see Riker. We didn't see Troy. Like all these things that we saw like leading up in the trailer didn't show up. And I appreciate the restraint.
Me too.
We also got a sense of who the villain of the show might be.
Yeah.
Romulans? I guess, like, I mean, they're the ones shooting at people.
I mean, name dropped. It's Greg Maddox.
Bruce Maddox.
Bruce Maddox.
He's set up as a hero. He is behind the synthetic operation.
Bruce Maddox is not a hero.
Okay, but he is set up as somebody who Picard would have supported, because Picard was against the disassembly of the synthetic operation, and he was behind it.
My reading of that is that, first of all, Bruce Maddox, if you don't know, is the villain in the episode Measure of a Man. He's the one who makes the case that Data is nothing but property.
Oh wow! Does he play the same character?
Oh, he's not in the.
Bruce Maddox is the character name.
Is the character name?
Is it the same actor?
He's not. He has not shown.
Okay,
he's not in this episode.
I was trying to trick you. See if it's come up yet.
But if you read into the history that, one, he was against androids and synthetics having any agency.
Dude, that's huge. I didn't realize he was that character.
He was that character.
That says a lot about where the synthetics were headed.
That's exactly it. Where I think if he was the brilliant scientist who ran the Federation Synthetic Research Division, of course he would then create, a class of androids that were just subservient to the Federation.
That's good. Yep.
Got to connect those dots. I think that's as much as we want to say about Picard. Now, let's put this out to listeners out there and viewers out there. Do we want week by week recaps?
Well, we're not going to be able to beyond the first three, because we won't be able to see them until...
Well, we can do one week later.
Yes, we could do 1 week later.
Yeah.
No, I have one last question. How do you think this held up versus other Star Trek premieres? I thought it holds up pretty well. It's still not my favorite premiere.
It's the first Star Trek premiere that's a continuation of that you get all the benefits and baggage of the past characters. So I don't think you can evaluate it on the same playing field.
But it's way better than Farpoint, which was weird.
Yes. I mean,
it's better than a lot of Star Trek premieres.
I don't think necessarily it was better than, DS9 or Voyager.
I think Emissary was a pretty good start.
Yeah. DS9 is horrible. Dude,
oh my God.
It's only good once you get going. The premiere's
the
no
point,
good.
Because the premiere sets up these storylines that if you go back, you're like, oh, that is a character arc. They knew what they were working on.
Isolating a premiere. You isolate it. You have
in terms of getting you excited.
Yes.
The Voyager premiere was also very good in that way too.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's a wonderful first episode. And by the way, Patrick Stewart's acting is fantastic.
Apparently, that guy can act. Who knew?
I mean, seriously though, I think it's better than Star Trek.
No, it's very good. It's more nuanced than Jean-Luc Picard in TNG, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, let's go off red alert, because that concludes our top story this week.
All right.
All right. Where do we want to go? So many things to go over this week. Let's go just down the slate on what we have laid out here. In the Marvel Universe, we have Modok coming to the small screen. Now, Modok,
one of the weirdest villains in the Marvel Universe,
is a giant head
that floats.
Can we get a visual on this?
Yeah,
I don't know if you want the visual on this.
And it's an acronym standing for the Mobile Organism Designed Only for Killing.
There he is. He's a giant being / like brain looking kind of thing that has a headband that can shoot telekinetic kind of powers.
It's a head with hands.
Yes, the hands and feet, and he's on a jetpack.
Oh my
gosh. And he floats around. He's kind of this like one of the weird characters that really only should exist in comics, but has been a favorite for comics fans and video games and the fighting games, and now he will make the small screen. But the bigger announcement is that this is Marvel TV, now under the umbrella of the MCU, and Hulu Hulu doing their new animated show. So this is on Hulu. It's going to be Marvel's Modok, and there's some casting. Most importantly, the voice of Modok is going to be Patton Oswalt. Now, I
Correct casting.
think that the only person they could have cast better than Patton Oswalt would have been John Hodgman.
Correct.
Who has long
He's a Modok fan.
lobbied to do the voice of Modok. But Patton Oswalt, I think, is just as good, and I'm very excited to hear his take.
Why is there a Marvel on Hulu?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Is this
too.
some sort of cast off? Like Disney's like, we don't want it.
Well, it's kind of like Ghost Rider is going to be on Hulu. It's part of that ABC. ABC has a stake in Hulu, and Disney owns ABC. So this is like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing.
But Disney could have said we want it for D+, but they said we don't.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
I bet you it'll show up on D+.
Yeah.
Eventually.
I'm still going to go tout the virtues of The Witcher. Toss a coin to your Witcher. Oh, Valley of Plenty. And Netflix has now said The Witcher is probably one of their most viewed new shows in the past year. Now, the bigger story here isn't that that The Witcher is popular, because it is popular. You guys should watch it. It's really good. But the way Netflix accounts for views and the way they show their ratings has changed, and they've kind of made it a little more lax. I'm not such a big fan of this. It might be showing Netflix's concern about services like Disney Plus, maybe Apple TV Plus, definitely HBO Max coming out later this year, being a competitor in the eyes of shareholders. Previously, Netflix, which never talks about ratings and sometimes only very rarely drops numbers when it's hugely in their favor, they evaluate whether a show has been viewed by how many people have watched up to 70% of the show. If it's a movie, you got to watch 70% of the movie in terms of minutes, or if it's a show, you got to watch 7 out of 10 episodes for them to count it as a view. That's a high bar to meet. But internally, that makes a lot of sense, because if you have someone watch 7 out of 10 episodes of The Witcher, guess what? They've seen The Witcher. They're into the show, and it can give them a great barometer for the quality of the show, not just this random metric of whether someone has, flipped it on and played the first couple minutes. Now they're taking a step back from that new metric to portray themselves a little bit better, because now they're talking about if you watch something for at least 2 minutes, they are going to call that you've indicated that your choice to watch that show was intentional. You've made an intentional choice to watch something if you have watched something for 2 minutes.
Okay.
So if you've watched the first 2 minutes of The Crown and didn't turn it back on, guess what? You chose to watch it. And so they're saying by this new metric, 73 million people have chosen to watch The Crown.
73 million people have watched at least 2 minutes of The Crown.
They've chosen to watch it, Jeremy.
Right, sorry.
They've chosen to watch it.
Okay.
And 76 million households have chosen to watch The Witcher in the first month of release. That's a big number.
Okay.
That's 35. And to be fair, they've been upfront that this new metric, the way they're evaluating the ratings, so to speak, of the show, they're doing it to kind of, by this measure, has inflated their numbers by 35%. And they've said as such. So take it all with a grain of salt.
Yes, take it with a grain of salt. But I do think this is spot on, that we need to reinvent what these metrics are,
or
in
create
this
some
day
type
and
of
age.
standard. And it's not possible to, because they're not going to have a centralized auditing system or polling system like you did with the Nielsen ratings, which
even
actually had
Nielsen-
boxes set up in people's homes.
But Nielsen was flawed just like any other service because, for many, many reasons.
Yeah. Long story short, watch The Witcher. Moving on to other exciting news. Big news out of Lego. Lego dropped word that they will be releasing an International Space Station set on February 1st for a very, I think, reasonable price of $70.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a sizable set, but it is sizable in a way that's affordable.
So typically the way you measure the value of Lego sets is if you look at number of pieces and kind of you evaluate it as maybe 10 cents per brick. So if a set has 1,000 pieces, then you assume that standard Lego price is $100. and that's including all, obviously all the markup. It does not cost Lego 10 cents to manufacture a single brick. Also, you got to look at, if you go deeper, the size of the bricks, diversity of bricks, colors, and all that stuff. Basically how well you could reuse those pieces to build anything else if you're that type of Lego builder. This Lego ISS has 800 and some odd pieces, and so the fact that it's $70, pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. And it doesn't come with a minifig.
It doesn't. It does come with a tiny. It's not minifig scale, obviously, but it does come with a tiny shuttle.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's smaller scale than the Saturn V rocket for those that might have bought that one. This is awesome. Jeremy and I are going to play Gravity with this. And by that, mean like act out scenes from the movie. It'll be awesome.
I said we should hang it from the ceiling, and you wanted to throw Lego
no,
pieces
I think we're going to figure a way to hang it from the ceiling. Maybe glue the pieces together to give it some structural rigidity. Yeah, I can't wait to see people build my own creation version of the Seven Eves version of the ISS using these parts, the expanded version, or maybe do a Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets and kind of use that as a template to expand and build your City of a Thousand Planets off of the ISS. Lots of options. Very excited for the set. It's going to be out February 1st. Also, going back to Netflix, other news that's important for some of you out there who don't live in the Canada, US, or Japan, Netflix has secured the rights to distribute the 21 films from the Studio Ghibli archives.
Awesome.
Great news for those Netflix subscribers.
Awesome for everyone except us.
Except for people who live in Japan, Canada, or the US. Now, we know VPNs are a thing, and you can absolutely use VPNs, presumably, to log in and say you're in the UK or wherever else Netflix serves. But in the US, the rights are under HBO. HBO Max is the service that will have the Studio Ghibli films.
I would have thought Disney would have that because they bring a lot of them to the US.
They do, but it's a separate deal. Streaming, DVD releases, all different. Now, what won't be on HBO Max, to make this a little more confusing, even though HBO Max is owned by AT&T Warner Brothers, is the Harry Potter films. What?
Considering HBO Max is a subsidiary of Time Warner Media, Warner meaning Warner Brothers, which produced the Harry Potter films.
Exactly. Instead, it's tied under a distribution deal with NBC Universal, which is launching their own streaming service.
Oh, thank goodness.
Peacock, coming out later this year.
It's going to cost more than cable eventually, isn't it?
Well, Peacock will have free ad-based, and it'll be Hulu-like in terms of the many tiers of pay. But yeah, the a la carte model. I mean, it's not that the a la carte model doesn't make sense. It's that the a la carte model has given these media companies the gumption and the motivation to produce more content than ever. So it's not like if you go back 10 years and look at what you were paying for cable, yeah, you might be paying close to, if not more than that now, but you're not just getting reruns of Seinfeld these days. You're getting reruns of Seinfeld and Friends if you're buying these services, but you're also getting more live TV and TV produced than ever, if you want to so call it TV. Disney Plus launching a week early in the UK and other streaming news. That's great for those of you who want to start watching The Mandalorian. Sorry.
I know that what's funny is that all the stories mentioning this all have Baby Yoda as like their title. It's supposed to be the big reveal.
Thanks a lot. Right.
Well, it was already ruined, but still, it's funny.
Yeah, it's going to be launching March 24th in the UK, a week earlier than originally planned. I don't know if it's time for a Disney Plus, month in post-mortem. It's been over a month, but it's really the archives that's selling it right now. I now understand why they were undercutting Netflix and HBO by so much and doing these 2-year, 3-year package deals. Is because outside Mandalorian and some shows at launch, they're not releasing stuff at the pace and cadence as Netflix. Not nearly.
Oh God, no!
It's an archive. You're subscribing to really an archive until the Marvel stuff comes out.
Yeah, but look at Apple by comparison.
I mean, that's a bigger problem.
Yeah,
even no library stuff.
Right. Apple's in trouble. Let's just call it what it is.
I don't know about that, but
I mean,
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus is in trouble.
yeah, it's a hobby.
Whereas I think Disney Plus is going to be fine. I mean, you have to think back to what it was like when Amazon Prime first launched Prime Video as a comparison to Disney Plus. Their cadence of shows coming out was much less. And now you see them kind of hit their stride and there's show after show after show leading you on. Netflix is at a higher cadence than that. But, it takes time to build there.
They made the investments early. We thought it was ridiculous 5-7 years ago when the Netflix bosses says, we're going to take these hundreds of millions of dollars that we would have given to stars and other licensors to be a licensee of content, and we're going to invest in original programming. And you're right, it takes years to spin that up. You can't just hire talent, in which companies have done, to develop. You need the production companies in place, you need the relationships in place, and the content, the buffet of content is the evidence of that.
Do you know if the UK is getting all of the Mandalorian episodes dropped at once?
I believe they are.
They are.
They must. There's no reason not to. That would be a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Disney, they announced that the 20th Century Fox brand, is dropping the name Fox. It's just going to be called 20th Century.
Yeah, and isn't Searchlight too? Aren't they taking Fox off Searchlight?
Yeah, and it's to avoid confusion because they don't own the Fox TV network. But that's what a strange thing. The whole relationship between Disney and Fox and that acquisition. Yes, they got a lot of classic Fox things like The Simpsons, and Fox TV is still going to be Fox TV that they own, but it's such a weird relationship.
It's all very strange, but it's sort of a natural thing to drop that name, given the TV network.
Yeah. We're going to go with HBO for a little bit. We had a couple new shows on HBO now that Watchmen and His Dark Materials have concluded. First of all, Watchmen, there will be no season 2 as far as HBO is concerned.
I haven't watched it yet, but you guys talk about it like it's the best thing on TV in years. And
it is the best thing on TV
I'm shocked to hear there won't be season 2 after hearing your reviews.
I have to say this. Great choice.
Really?
Awesome choice. This is the right choice. I totally want more. This is one of the best series to come out in the last decade. It ends on a perfect note. And if you don't have a story to tell, don't do it.
Yep.
Don't do it.
And even though you could say it ends on a cliffhanger of sorts, where your appetite for more, that is exactly how the original Watchmen was written as well. And it's how it was completely intentional. Damon Lindelof and his team of writers really envisioned this to be a single season show to stand on its own, which I think it absolutely does. And Lindelof has said he doesn't have motivation. He doesn't have an idea, German idea to tell a season 2. He would have been happy, because obviously he doesn't own the rights. He would have been happy to watch a season 2 if someone else took the reins and ran with it. And the fact that HBO is showing the restraint on such a critically acclaimed show.
I think it tells you there's no good idea.
Well, that they still value the quality over just the quantity. And which I don't think a movie studio would have that same restraint.
No.
Cue Bad Boys 4.
But I think the door is open years down the road. If they come back and have a good idea, I think HBO would totally be in.
And I'm sure Damon Lindelof would be front of the line for someone to come up with that idea, having work with that material in this version of the story for so long. HBO's 2 new shows. Have you guys, any of you seen Avenue 5?
Nope.
I haven't watched it yet.
This is from the creator of Veep, and Veep is concluded. So it's a science fiction show. It's about like almost Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like in
It's comedy.
Comedy. Yep. It stars House MD.
Yeah, Hugh Laurie in space.
Okay.
Yeah, as the captain, I believe, of a space cruise.
Is it using his natural accent?
No.
American
accent. And I haven't seen it either, so I actually don't know.
Okay.
But that's out there. Also, Curb Your Enthusiasm back, season 10. One of the best shows ever.
Oh, man. It's so long between these episodes.
That was like 3 years. Yeah.
Seasons.
Yeah. It's like the second time it's come back after Larry David said he's done with it. And it's still quite good. Into movie news. This is deep in the rumor mill, but it's rumor that Tyco Waititi maybe working on a Star Wars film, or has that at least he's been invited
He's been approached, and this is following on his direction of the finale, which was so well received of The Mandalorian,
and also being already in the House of Mouse with director of Thor 3, Thor 4.
This feels like Disney not taking that full pause on a Star Wars. Thinking that they probably should.
You need that runway. It's not like the movie's going to come out next year. Thor 4 is coming out next year.
Yeah.
So he's going to be out of commission in terms of filmmaking. If he was to work on a Star Wars film, it wouldn't be for 4 years. So really, it's about, does he want to make that type of commitment?
I think this is grabbing at a trend instead of focusing on a story.
I think it's getting talented people locked in to develop, hopefully, ideas that they can agree with and not just then discard because of creative differences.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's what comes to mind when I see this headline, is that
the fear that
3 years from now or 2 years from now, they depart because of
Lucasfilm,
creative differences.
Oh, God. But he's the one, I mean, we talked about the Doctor Strange and the Mountain of the Multiverse of Madness director, Scott Derrickson, leaving the at least director seat of the film because of creative differences. And Marvel, it worries me because on one hand, Taika, let Taika make Thor Ragnarok, which is such a departure from Thor 1 and 2, being a straight up comedy. And then on the other hand, they won't let, presumably, we don't know what the story is, Scott Derrickson make a horror film, and they're playing it safe there. Star Wars is a franchise where I cannot imagine them not wanting to play it safe on the big screen because the stakes are, you need to make $2 billion and not $1 billion.
Really?
I mean, that's presumably why they, they didn't have the directors of Solo on, Miller and Lord.
Yeah.
But who knows? That's a lot of inside baseball we don't know about. I for one would love to see Taika Waititi write and direct a Star Wars film. It doesn't need to be part of any saga. Standalone Star Wars film.
I don't know. Like I said, watching Mandalorian, we don't want to go into Star Wars like deep, right? But I will say that the comedy in the last episode of Mandalorian struck a chord with me. Like, that's something that could be done.
Exactly.
And if Taika Waititi could do that, could bring comedy to Star Wars in a way that's just like, let's just go in on this. I think it could work, but I don't think that that's playing it safe. I think that is a departure.
That's what I'm saying. But the fear is that, again, that maybe what they will allow on TV, The Mandalorian, or the comics or the cartoons, the animated stuff, is not what they would allow on the big screen. Because the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about viewers watching one episode of a show that they've already bought into and paid the subscription fee for, but you need to get people to pay $8, $10, $20 for IMAX to watch and make $1 billion plus. The fact that The Rise of Skywalker crossed $1 billion and people were not trumpeting that as a success says a lot. It says that the expectations are way too high.
They're not?
They're not. I mean, it's a golf clap of you made it. You inched over $1 billion.
That true?
Yes, that's so sad. The film today can make $1 billion worldwide and not be seen as now, to be objectively, it is a success. That's money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
But I know from a shareholder and probably from an expectation standpoint,
what was the investment?
Hoping for more.
Was it $200 million like most of these movies?
Probably more than that.
It was probably closer to $500 million.
You think so?
I mean, include marketing 100%.
Jeez. All right.
Yeah. I mean, they look at Endgame, $3 billion. Right? I think they wanted that. Difference between $1 billion and $3 billion? $2 billion. Where are we going next? Speaking of Star Wars, Oscar Isaac has found his next project. We're wondering what are these Star Wars actors going to do now that the Skywalker saga is over? I can't wait. I mean, I love the new cast so much. I can't wait to see what John Boyega is going to do, what Daisy Ridley is going to do, what Kelly Marie Tran's going to do, and Oscar Isaac, who's already had a lot of success outside of Star Wars, what he's going to do. And the thing he's doing next is it's a comic book adaptation. This is funny. The movie's called The Great Machine, and it's based off of a comic book by Brian K. Vaughan called Ex Machina.
You mean Isn't that the title of a movie that Oscar Isaac has been in?
Ex Machina is the title of a movie completely unrelated that Oscar Isaac also started.
It's got to be the same conceit. You don't write the title Ex Machina or Deus Ex Machina without the same basic conceit.
Well, the conceit of the comic book is completely different than the Ex Machina film. Right?
Really?
Ex Machina is just a phrase. The conceit of the comic book, I think obviously they have to call it the Great Machine because it's not the Ex Machina. They don't want to confuse it with Ex Machina, which a lot of people love, and I think it's a great film. But it's a mayor of New York who is the world's only superhero who can communicate with machines. And one of the twists is that he was able to stop one of the planes from hitting a building in 9/11.
Oh, what?
This is in the comics. This was written like in the 10 years ago. And so there's one tower left. He has this like jetpack. He stopped one of the planes and he ran for mayor. And through some fluke, he got basically 100% of the vote. So, and he's a politician that's also used to be a superhero. And it goes back and forth between his time as a superhero and his time as a politician. I don't know how that's going to get adapted. It's actually a really great comic book. I'm not doing good service by describing it this way. Some of its twists and turns.
How was the comic book received?
Very well.
Yeah?
It's very, very well. It's Brian K. Vaughan who did Why the Last Man. He's known for writing these long epic stories that aren't too sensational despite, the plotting here. But I'm excited to see Oscar Isaac cast in this role.
Jeremy, you always ask, when is going to be the moment when comics go too far? Reach that moment for me.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way. Although I will say this reminds me of a Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee episode where Matthew Broderick gets taken out in a Lamborghini. And he makes the point about the producers that when the producers was made, it was only 20 years after the Holocaust. And that they're making a lot of fun out of Hitler. Really, really recent, after the tragedy. And that would be like making a comedy now about 9/11.
It's not a comedy, though. It's supposed to be a drama. I hope it's going to be like West Wing with superheroes. Because it's about the politics.
God, the next story, please. Oh, dear. This has gotten worse.
I hope it's going to be good. Okay, back to Star Wars. Two more stories we got left in pop culture. Rise of Resistance is open at Disneyland.
Yes.
I thought you were going to go, Jeremy.
I'm going to go. Have you seen the crowds?
I thought you were going to go for opening day.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did.
You're so glad you didn't. People waited in line the night before. There is like some type of reservation system.
Yeah.
When that opened, people in line waiting to get into the park, at 3 a.m.
You
couldn't even log in.
It's on your app. You don't have to go to Fast Pass. You go on your app and you get in line into a queue.
Yeah.
And, you have to be within the park boundaries to do it. I don't know. I'm going to wait. I'm waiting, but hopefully, normally midweek in January is pretty light. And so I'm hoping that that'll lighten up. Maybe we'll take a trip down, day trip.
There's no such thing as light at Disney anymore.
Yeah, no. But compared to the weekends, it's a relative thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm really curious what the lines will be like on the East Coast at Disney World, where Rise of Resistance has been open for a little bit already.
I don't think it affects that.
You don't think it affects
Disneyland? I don't think that the opening in Disneyland will affect the Disney World lines.
Oh, I'm just saying like what the disparity in lines are.
Yeah, right.
Because when Galaxy's Edge opened, there were no big lines because everyone stayed away.
I wasn't planning to go to this until I watched the last episode of the Imagineering documentary, the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, and it got me really excited about it. It's by all accounts, arguably the best ride at Disney. Like this is a big deal if you're into rides and the Disney Imagineering, what they do. And it's an 18-minute ride.
You're giving away too much already.
And no, I'm not. Everyone knows this.
I don't. I think it would be a nice surprise for people to go and even colder.
It's a ride? What?
But I mean, it's in the. I just know that from the documentary. If you really don't want to know anything, sure, go for it. But it's a very long ride that incorporates part of the experience into the line itself in a new way, which I like. It's a good way to keep the audience entertained. But the ride itself is supposed to be quite good. And
I can't wait.
I wonder if they meant to have this open with Galaxy's Edge and just couldn't get it done. In any case, this was always intended to be the main attraction in Galaxy's Edge. The Millennium Falcon was supposed to be sort of the second ride.
Wow.
So I can't wait. I want to get down there.
I will hopefully come back in 3 weeks with a report from Walt Disney World, because that's where I'm going in 2 weeks. Super Bowl week. I'm going to test that myth that Super Bowl day is the worst day, best day to go to Disneyland. It's not.
Disney World.
It's Disney World. Yeah.
It's
happening in Florida. I will be like 300 miles away from where Super Bowl's happening.
Your home team's in it.
That's right.
That's crazy, man.
Go Niners. And our last story, we've been big fans of Derek DelGaudio's show in and of itself. Adam talked so much about it.
It's
and
amazing.
while the show concluded, wrapped up its run on Broadway, they were filming a documentary during its run. And that documentary will make its debut at South by Southwest this year. I'm so excited for this. Any opportunity to relive any moment of that show, I'm going to just kind of jump at.
This you should watch, Jeremy.
In and of itself?
Like the highest recommendation. I mean, it's always a little bit of a trick translating what you see on stage to something in person. And from what we gather, it's going to be completely different.
Wait. This is a documentary about the show?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the show. It can't be the show. I think it's about the making of the show. Maybe they'll intercut with bits from the show. I mean, it's 90 minutes. It's a documentary.
As you enter the show, you take a name tag or a tag that is an adjective that describes yourself.
It's an identity play. Yeah, you have to grab a card that says "I am," and there's a million different.
So that you can't do that at home.
I don't think it's going to be the show, Shore.
His name's Kishore.
Yeah, I think. Well, identity play, right? I think it's about the impact the show had, about his journey writing the show, Frank Oz directing it, and some of the audience reactions to it. And I think it's going to be about that.
The show's over, right?
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah, I don't think he can.
I don't think it's going to be a straight documentary. I think it's going to be a little weird. Like
itself is a magic trick.
Derek is like a strange guy. Frank Oz is not going to direct something kind of down the middle at this stage.
He directed this?
He directed he directed the magic show.
Really?
Yeah. He would sit in the back and watch it.
I sat next to Frank Oz sat behind me when I saw it.
That's crazy. Well, man. I mean, the way when you talked about it, having come back from New York and seen it, I was very envious. So I will certainly watch this just so I understand the show better.
There are some, few things in my life that I regret. One of which is missing Hamilton when it was in New York with the opportunity to see it. Like literally, we were looking at shows to buy.
You could have been cool,
and it could have been so cool. Not even so cool, but like Danica was like, we should go see this thing called Hamilton. I read a review in the New York Times, like, how about see something else? Or, the tickets are so expensive. For whatever reason, we missed the opportunity. So bummed, one of those regrets. And I made up for it because we flew to New York to watch this show.
You flew there to see this?
Well, we flew for
something else.
like a anniversary thing, and we saw it. And well, when the documentary comes out, we'll talk more about the experience.
Yeah, I went by myself and I felt super awkward, and then loved every minute of it.
Was that your descriptor? You were.
I am alone.
A loner. We will have the spoiler of this show at some point. We'll have to have a spoiler-filled discussion.
Do you know if it's coming?
Didn't we do a Still Untitled on this?
Yes, but I don't think we described the actual.
No, you didn't, because you wanted to, because it was still live. You didn't want to spoil it. Yeah. Is this coming to theaters or?
It must be. I think it's going to be at South by with the anticipation of someone picking it up. It might be a Netflix. It might be an Amazon. It's one of the. This is one of those things that I'd be happy to watch in theaters.
You only have to watch
or
30% of it to count. Then
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. You've selected to watch it. All right. Before we move on to our next segment. We've had a long show so far already. I'll let you know that this episode of the Still Need Test is made possible with support from Lightstream. The holidays are over and it's a brand new year. If you're thinking about the high interest credit cards you use over the holidays and the bills that will be coming, here's an idea to ease your mind. Pay off your credit card balances and save with a credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream. Roll multiple credit card payments into just one payment at a lower fixed rate. Lightstream's credit card consolidation loans have rates as low as 5.95 APR with autopay. That's much lower than the national average interest rate of over 20% APR. Plus, there are absolutely no fees, no application fees, no origination fees, no transaction fees, no prepayment penalties. The application is quick and easy, and you can apply right on your phone. And for our listeners, apply now and get a special interest rate discount. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/test. That's lightstream.com/test. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes a 0.5% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/test for more information. All right, let's get through tech news relatively quickly.
It's not as important as pop culture.
Well, there's just a lot more pop
I
culture,
see,
a lot
I
more
see.
Picard this weekend. There's a lot of VR, so I want to make sure we have time to get to that too. First of all, on the Apple side, there is potentially a low-cost iPhone coming. This was long rumored, and Bloomberg's Mark Gurman has reported that it's entering mass production in February. The prevailing theory is that it will look similar to the iPhone 8, so not the iPhone 10, not edge-to-edge screen, and that it will incorporate a Touch ID as opposed to Face ID. So 4.7-inch screen, and it will also use the same processor as the iPhone 11. So latest speed, latest processor, but a worse display, and also no Face ID, no edge screen. And we don't know the situation of the cameras.
That actually doesn't sound so bad. Like, isn't the iPhone 8 is what, probably about $500 or something like that right now?
It's, I believe, $450.
So are we thinking about something in that range of price?
Maybe $50 less. $399 might be a compelling point for them to sell it at. So I have no doubt that a price point of $399 for iPhone is going to be hugely attractive and it will sell a ton of units. Also, Apple's, the long play theory is that they raise the minimum the price of smartphones to $1,000, the new norm, and got other, one, they were able to sell phones at $1,000 plus. Like the iPhone 11 Pro Max is what, like $1,250 or something to start. It's absurd amount if you think about how much smartphones were costing with subsidies 10 years ago now. But people are paying it. We're paying it. There's the whole loan program and the whole, month-to-month upgrade program. They've figured out a way to make more money making phones that cost marginally more than the phones they were making for them in years past. At the same time, it got the market to follow suit. Got Samsung to start selling $1,000 phones, right? And at the same time, one of the theories is that while Samsung has sold a bunch of phones at $1,000 and famously not been able to sell like the Galaxy Fold premium phones at over $1,000, Apple has then snuck in and renamed the 10R into the 11 and sold the 11 for a relatively reasonable price of $800, and now coming in potentially selling in with a low-cost phone of maybe $400.
It's interesting that normally Apple has no problem having Samsung follow suit and copy them.
Yeah.
And you're spinning that as a positive this time around.
That they conned Samsung into raising their prices to a point where
I don't think Samsung has a problem with that either.
But Samsung maybe didn't sell as many as they would have.
Oh, maybe.
They could have.
That's interesting.
If Samsung kept their prices at $800, they might have done better in the market in terms of market share. But they followed suit. And so one of they could have ninjaed their way into owning not only the high end, but also the mid-range at $400. Now, you got to make a comparison to the iPhone SE, right? Which was the iPhone 5 with a faster processor. And undoubtedly cost was a big appeal to the SE.
Is that different than the 5C?
Yes. The 5C.
That was plastic, the 5C.
But that was the low-cost phone as well, right?
Right. This feels more like, if they are going to put a low-cost phone with iPhone 8 design, this feels more like a 5C than it feels like the 5SE.
So
the
confusing.
And
if I can't understand this, like this is what Jobs came in and like wiped out when he came back to Apple.
And simplified the SKUs.
Yeah.
My argument is, or my question, I guess, is Apple discounting the popularity of small form factor and missing an opportunity to sell a ton of these new phones by going with an iPhone 8 chassis. Because iPhone 8 chassis, and I'm sure they've done the market research, and I'm sure people love big screens. And people are like, oh, okay, $400, $450 for an iPhone 8 size phone with a fast processor and good camera. Sign me up. I'm in for that. But I know there's got to be a segment of users who are looking at the growing size of the phones and want something like the 5 SE, the SE, want something like, not fast processor, but I don't need a giant phone.
So instead of 4.7 inch, like what were you talking?
4.5 inch.
4.5.
But also the aspect ratio being a little taller. A candy bar phone.
I don't think so. I don't feel like I know who those users are. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but I think we're at the place where like that 4 3/4 size is kind of
dead.
You think it's dead?
I think it's unfortunate. I think if I gave you an iPhone 5, which was the thinnest phone they've made and the smallest, lightest phone they've made, and as an iPhone user now, I'm like, I've accepted the fact that the phone is this big, right? The 11 Pro is that big, 11 is that big, 11's even bigger. But holding a 5, I miss how light that phone was. I miss how small that phone was. And maybe Apple will go back to that sometime in the future, and maybe they'll charge more for it. Maybe that's maybe that's the MacBook Air equivalent. Or the MacBook, when they redid the MacBook and charge a premium for thin and light. Anyway, that's still in the rumor mill. Apple also made a lot of news this week in terms of its privacy policy, and there's a story out of Reuters that said that Apple maybe, and if you've been following U.S. news, you know that Apple is kind of at odds with the Justice Department right now over the unwillingness to unlock a suspect's phone, but the report from Reuters is that Apple dropped plans to encrypt backups on iCloud after the FBI complained, or maybe to appease perhaps the FBI.
What do you think Apple's internal designs are for cooperating with the government? Because they can't do it publicly.
Are you saying it's the Chinese government? They'll do it.
Apple can't come out and say, okay, FBI, we will unlock that phone.
They won't.
They'll never do that.
They'll never. And there are tools that the FBI could use to unlock the phone.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe there's another way. There's like back channels to teams of people whose entire company is hacking iPhones. They could feed them a method, or
I don't think they do that either.
Not block an exploit that they've discovered, soon enough in order to block them from being able to unlock a certain phone.
That's a real slippery slope. And that's bad policy regardless.
Well,
the thing they are selling is privacy, and we have encrypted backups if you back up your phone locally on a computer.
So you
think iTunes.
You think Apple's genuine in that they will never cooperate with unlocking any kind of phone, and they will do everything they can to lock all those holes?
I think they've done so far. Their stance and their big marketing message is that
that's different than their internal stance.
And if we want to be realistic about it, I'm inclined to believe that they will give in, especially they have shown they will cave, to pressure, which is disappointing if that's what their message has been.
So I wonder if this is just them capitulating to public perception, or the risk of public perception if they are seen as not aiding law enforcement in some way, like actually stopping crimes. Because that's the message that'll come out from the FBI and law enforcement. Like, we need this to stop crimes from happening. Apple doesn't want to be in like a PR war around that.
That's been the message from the president already.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and like the president today announced that he wants to work with Apple on encryption. So there's like a public stance going back and forth here.
And I don't think they lose in the court of public opinion unless information is leaked. Unless there is some type of data leak, which there hasn't been so far. And unfortunately, I don't think the vast majority of people, even those who follow the Apple news, care that their data is not encrypted server side. A reasonable solution might be to offer that and let it be opt-in and maybe not by default.
That's terrible.
But Google does it. Google does encrypted both ways. Your data, your Google backup, because it's so much more than what's on your phone. It's the whole Google ecosystem.
It's where you live. Yeah. Like all that, your location history, all that kind
That's
of stuff.
encrypted on their side and your side with keys that you generate locally. But on iCloud, it is not secure. I mean, email isn't secure either, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right?
This feels very wishy-washy from Apple. Like, go one way or the other. It feels like this is just a loophole to, straddle the line. I think this is going to be settled in courts more than it is going to be settled by local policy, because I'm sure we're going to get into court cases where law enforcement is going to be able to compel your face to unlock your phone. Think about that. That's really gets real messed up.
Hey, my kids already hold the phone up to my face, and before I can tell what they're doing, it's unlocked. That's all it takes.
We're going to get to some Valve news in VR, of course, with Half-Life Alyx, but a little bit of maybe news is that at CES, Android Police had a chat with a director of project management for Chrome OS on the Google side, and one bit of news that was released is that they are looking into bringing Steam to Chromebooks, the Steam client.
This is craziness. They can't. What? Like Steam runs in the cloud, or is it like a
local on the Linux kernel?
Okay.
So the question is, what would you play?
Well, whatever
on Steam, whatever the Chromebook could run, and Chromebooks are powerful. There are some Chromebooks that you can get on the high end that are powerful.
There's certainly games that don't require a powerful PC on Steam as well.
Most people that have Chromebooks do not have powerful Chromebooks. They have the kind of low end, kind of use for school kind of level.
But there are plenty of 2D games that you could potentially get. It's just another storefront. It's a big deal because this is letting them perhaps install a native app store for games, because
cool.
Maybe it's not as viable on the Chrome store right now, Chrome OS store, all those games.
God, I just wonder if Steam will ever launch a Stadia type service where you can just play every game on Steam streamed.
That's a huge engineering undertaking, and if you go back, and I think companies like Microsoft and PlayStation have the back end and developer support to perhaps launch that. Google has showed it's struggled already with Stadia, with maybe over-promising the feature set and very high expectations given how many resources they've put into it. But in terms of Stadia news, there is news in Stadia. They said that they're going to have 120 games coming in 2020. That's tracking right now. And that also probably includes the back catalogs with their partnership with Ubisoft and their Uplay Plus.
Doom Eternal's coming to it.
Yeah. Are you excited for Doom Eternal?
I wasn't until I watched this recent No Clip podcast interview with dude from id. He's an excellent interview. And they postmortem the first Doom, which I didn't dig a whole lot. And I related to the postmortem. They kind of admitted what I found at fault with it. And
which is what?
You could play it wrong. You could play it with the double barrel shotgun, just run up to people and blow them up, and you didn't have to do a lot of
strafing behind
and weapon switching and jumping around and acrobatics. And they apparently they strive to fix that, and the game now forces you into the fun zone, and it sounds like a game that I'll enjoy more. You?
If I have time for it. Yeah,
it's like that.
Yeah,
you won't have.
I won't have time for it. Yeah, I'm actually really glad about our next story because Cyberpunk's been delayed, and I know it sucks for people who've been long waiting for it, but it's been pushed till the fall. But better to get it right. Who was it? Miyamoto that said
a delayed game is potentially good. A game released too early is always bad.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So pushed till September 17th, Cyberpunk 2077. Still crossing fingers for some type of VR support eventually. But that's a game. That's the next game I'm going to spend a lot of hours in.
They've never said that, right?
They're crossing. One can dream.
Yeah,
one can dream. If Microsoft can have its opinions changed and incorporate VR into Flight Simulator, maybe CD Projekt.
People have wanted GTA 5 since that came out in VR, and it's been hacked.
Yes.
Like you can do it with a mod, but it's not native.
No.
And that's if it was going to happen to some game like that, you'd think that would be it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say though, lo-fi, if you want that kind of Blade Runner vibe, lo-fi looks quite good, and you can buy early access right now. They're also, the developer is going to he has a little arcade with playable arcade games in it. He's going to put Star-Lords in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Not playable.
Just the
But
cabinet.
the cabinet will be there.
That's cool.
Yeah, quite.
Did you provide them the model, or they're modeling?
Mike and Sean provided assets.
Wow, nice Easter egg.
Yeah.
I got to play that now. All right. That does it for technology news. Before we move on to our next section, I want to let you know that this episode is also made possible by Capital One. Capital One knows life doesn't alert you about your credit card. That's why they created Eno, the Capital One assistant that catches things that might look wrong with your credit card, like over tipping, duplicate charges, or potential fraud, and then sends alert to your phone and helps you fix it. It's another way Capital One is watching out for your money when you're not. Capital One, what's in your wallet? See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now it's time for a moment of science. All right, there's a ton of VR news, so I'm going to keep this brief. But first, breaking Picard news.
Whoa.
So
Really?
Patrick Stewart went on The View today, and he was talking about the season, and he officially invited one of The View co-hosts to be on season 2.
Oh, I can guess who that is.
Yeah.
That's one of my wife's favorite characters.
What do we think about Guinan coming back? I'm pro Guinan.
We're in the Nexus.
All in.
We're in the Nexus, folks.
Yeah, she got emotional and got up and hugged him.
Oh my goodness.
Like this was really. Did you get the sense that wasn't planned?
Even if it's contrived,
All right.
I'm bought in. I'm there. I'm there. All right. So just a couple stories this week. We first have to talk about what's happening in Wuhan in China. This is a city of about 10 million people. It's essentially on lockdown right now. Public transportation is shut down through Thursday at 10 a.m. Flights are canceled in and out of the city because they detected about a month ago, maybe like even 8 weeks, a transmission from a animal market that had fish and other livestock, a virus that went from animals to humans. It's a coronavirus, which is this broad class of viruses that includes stuff like SARS and MERS that tend to, when they cross over to humans, cause respiratory ailments. Now, in the case of the coronavirus in Wuhan, they've demonstrated that it is being transmitted human to human, typically through coughs and sneezes. And that's why they've shut down all of the transportation around Wuhan to try to stem the spread of the disease. There's already been a confirmed case that has landed in the U.S. So
Seattle, right?
Yeah, in Seattle. They set up screening at airports where they're taking people's temperatures. There'll be infrared cams that are actually looking for people that have fevers walking through. The reason they're taking this so seriously is because of what happened with SARS years ago, where we had, I think there was just short of 1,000 deaths from SARS and about 8,000 cases. If you remember that a while ago, that scientist Joe DeRisi was on Still Untitled, talking about all sorts of viruses and stuff.
Scariest episode ever.
Joe is largely credited with one of the scientists that first characterized SARS. And one of the reasons SARS was a bigger deal is we had a hard time tracking that virus down. We just tracking the infection, the vector of the entire spread. In this case, the coronavirus has already been identified that's causing this. We don't know how it went from the animals to humans at this point, so they still have to understand that. But it's essentially already been isolated. So while they're nervous about it, we're like leaps and bounds ahead of where we were with SARS. But because of SARS, they're taking these huge precautions about its spread. You may have seen in the news lots of stories about the spike in the number of cases. At this point, we aren't sure if that's actually because there's been more cases or just more characterization of the cases, like more just diagnosis. But at this point, we're in the low few hundreds of cases being identified at this point. About 15 to 20% have serious respiratory ailments where they'll have to go essentially on a ventilator, and a number of patients have already died. But at this point, I think we're actually in, like, weirdly, I'm very optimistic about where we are around this. Like, the Chinese government has been apparently pretty transparent about what's happening here. There's been a lot of coordination across country lines to contain this, and a lot of shared information so far in terms of the science, so we can actually stem the tide. It's a really serious issue, but not one that I think anyone should be panicked about and be wearing masks everywhere you go. But it seems like we are starting to get a handle on it, and probably in the coming weeks we'll learn more. But this is essentially, imagine this world that we're living in, that coronavirus in 1918, because that's what killed. There's a flu virus that spread in 1918 that killed off 1 million plus people. And essentially, because we couldn't track the vectors, we didn't understand where it was coming from, we couldn't quarantine people's transmission. We had just near 1 million people die from that entire spread. So you can see how much progress we've made in sort of containing this situation. Still a really serious situation, to the point where they shut down transportation of a 10 plus million person city.
That's, I mean, the logistics of that is crazy, because all it takes is a few people to get through. And the fact that that works is a testament to just like how well organized, like you said, we are today.
Yeah. On a different note, let's talk about rockets going explodey.
Oh boy.
In a good way.
SpaceX this week
expected way
launched a test where they blew up some of their own Falcon 9 rockets as part of safety testing for their new Dragon capsule. And what they demonstrated in this series of tests is the Dragon capsule ability to be to eject and like demonstrate its like ability to parachute off and then detonate the rockets remotely before it reaches orbit. Super successful, great visuals, a huge success moment, and sets up another success on the way for SpaceX to actually put the Dragon capsule into place. This is a pretty key safety bar for them to hit for this to go forward. So I was pretty excited about that splody. And last thing, NASA is looking for names for their next Mars rover. And it's not a Bodie McBoatface situation, but it's close. They have set up an online poll where kids in grade school have submitted a list of 9 names for the rover. Okay, so
all right,
tell me which one you like the best.
Okay, are we going to list them?
I'm going to list them.
Now, the list order, I think, biases a little bit, but we're going to read them as they're displayed. It's fortitude, ingenuity, tenacity, perseverance, promise, endurance, vision, clarity, and courage.
So just note, when you refresh the page, they'll change the order.
Oh, nice.
At least mine was in a different order than you.
Mm-hmm. I will also say, it looks like each name came from a different grade set.
Yeah, so there's like K to 3, and then high school and middle school kind of levels. Do you have a favorite out of the 9?
Yes.
Which one?
Vision.
Vision.
Yeah.
Ooh, for a rover.
Yeah, because I feel like that's what it gives us. And I realize the others are more heartfelt, but the vision seems more literal, and I like that.
I'm on the either perseverance or fortitude, because I think the Mars landscape is very, very challenging place to be. And so I like the Mark Watney style work the problem situation.
I look at fortitude and I imagine if this was open to the public, the Mars rover Fortnite might have been what was chosen. I like ingenuity.
Oh, look, we all chose very different things.
Yeah.
When I looked last night, there had only been about 5,000 votes in this. And NASA said they're going to take the name that you vote on under consideration. So
No promises.
No promises. That's Bodie McBoatface for you. But you should all go vote and name.
Do I have to sign in?
I don't know.
Oh, I voted. You don't have to sign in.
Oh, okay.
Done.
Great. Thanks, NASA.
And listen for a moment of science. The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week. All right. Hey, let's not talk about Half-Life Alyx just yet. We're still parsing through so much of the comments in the AMA. But let's talk about Pavlov.
Well, sure. It's not technically news, is it?
But it's part of the discussion.
We have been playing a lot of Pavlov on Quest.
That is the news. Pavlov Shack is out.
Well, yeah, because it fell onto, it was always intended to be on SideQuest, and it finally showed up almost a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And I'd played it with you on PC, and I enjoyed it, but I kind of thought the Quest version wouldn't be as good, so like I was late to that party. I never seeked it out, and I didn't even install it when it showed up on SideQuest right away. But my son loves Counter-Strike, and so I said, hey, I might have a game for you. Try this. And he fell in love with this game. Like, this is all he wants to play now, so hence I'm playing it a lot, inviting you to play it a lot. And
is that funny? Your son is 12 years old?
Well, 13 in a couple weeks, yeah.
And it wasn't Beat Saber that was the killer app.
No, he's like super good at Beat Saber.
Right.
But yeah, in fact, he'd probably still be playing Beat Saber had I not given him Pavlov.
But Pavlov, and he's a Minecraft and Fortnite player?
Previously.
But it's in terms of, right, but now this is the one thing he wants to play.
Yeah, he's crazy.
That's crazy. Now, I completely in the same boat where I love playing Pavlov on the Index. I love the image quality, the fast refresh rate, and I was suspicious about the playability on Quest, but I'm really enjoying it on Quest as well. The performance is really good.
Yeah, I mean, when he played it, he was like, why isn't this in the store? This is really good. Now, some of the graphics on one of the maps in particular is pretty rough. And there's lacking some features. You can't form parties.
Sure.
You have to hit join at the same time, start a voice chat and just join. You also can't group.
It feels like early access.
You can't group mute. You can't turn your mic off in the game. These are all things that they have to
But you got modes like TTT.
It's all in there.
You got zombies. You got search and destroy. You got the gun game stuff. All the weapons are there.
All the reload mechanics work.
Reload mechanics work. The sniper stuff, they're using just the holoscope as opposed to holosight and as opposed to actual scope. Okay. So that might be a performance issue as well, which makes it easier to snipe on the Quest. But it is the real mechanic is the big thing, right? It's how dexterous your hands need to be to use these firearms in this in the games. And when you got full servers of 5v5, like this feels like Counter-Strike more so than even Pavlov on desktop VR. This feels like, I mean, not in terms of the search and destroy is the same game mode, but in terms of where it is in the VR world. Like what it represents for VR is what Counter-Strike represented for PC gaming back in 1999. Mm-hmm. That's what Pavlov feels like now. The excitement over it, the kind of mod aspect of it that's not from an established publisher. It's not in an official store. You got to side load this, the rough graphics of it, the ongoing development. This is all so reminiscent to the Counter-Strike community. Which was one of the things that drove PC gaming, people buying graphics cards, people getting faster internet connections. The whole community is built around that.
Like the early odds.
In 1999, 2000, that's what Pavlov feels like now with the benefits of all the piggybacking of all the mechanics that have been developed since 1999.
Yeah, I've never played Counter-Strike because I've always been bad at it because the community has always been so good at it. And it is... the main mode of Counter-Strike is permadeath until that end of that round. And I don't know, maybe it's that Pavlov, the community is still so new that I don't suck so much and I can compete that I'm enjoying it a lot more.
There's not crossplay yet with the PC users. Is that a real big problem?
Sadly,
because you're fracturing the community?
Well, it would be better if it was crossplay, but it's there's plenty of players because it is free. There's always players online. There's always people playing. And if not, it drops bots in who aren't half bad. Although it's far better with people. But like you said, all the modes are in there, and we're having a really good time. And I wish that I was better informed about this. At one point, it was not coming to the store, and as far as I know, that's still the case. And it's going to be on side quest, and that might be the end of it. But I think Onward is coming to the store, and maybe I'm curious if anybody can let us know. Has Pavlov been accepted? Yeah, to the end. Is it eventually coming properly to Oculus Quest? Because that would only improve the user base, and I think that would be a really good thing. And it's clearly finished. I'm curious why they wouldn't accept it.
I think it's playable. I don't know if you'd say finish. I mean, there are absolutely things that
all those things I mentioned still have to be added. Yes. But the raw gameplay, like you can tell, if I were an Oculus, I would be like, yeah, just fix these things and you're in.
Yeah.
Like it seems good.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the cert requirements are, but it's super easy to sideload it. There's a whole naming thing where you got to use side quests to change your name if you're a character and allow for microphone input. But it works. It's super playable, super fun. I would say, where Beat Saber is the mainstream killer app potentially for Quest and VR, this is that little more of the hardcore.
It's exceptional
killer app.
Yeah, and if I could make one request to the developers, if you're out there. I have a 13-year-old playing the game. I would love if you put in the menus of the game itself, mic muting and voice chat muting. That'd be awesome. Because right now, he has to do it manually for everybody. It's like I'm sure we all agree, voice chat isn't always PG-13.
That's right.
Yeah.
It almost never is.
Also on side quest, there's an update to T for God.
I wish I could tell you about it.
You didn't play it?
No, but it's a massive update, and this is a beloved game. This is one of those games that does something no one else has done before, which is creates these non-Euclidean worlds where you turn a corner and you walk in a circle, and it's a whole different space.
It has to be single player. It is using not exactly redirected walking, but like you said, non-Euclidean worlds. It's breaking the rules of physics and space.
Yes,
in a way that you can only do in VR.
And it's customized for your play space, which is a very rare thing in VR.
It's procedurally generated environments.
And what they've added is just a lot more complexity and intricacy to what you can do in the world and interact with the menus. And it's supposed to be very good. I'm sorry I don't have more of a review for it, but I saw it was on SideQuest. I can't wait to play it.
So one of the updates in their changelog is that they are actively working on hand tracking support as well.
Yeah.
Controller-free hand tracking support, and which a lot of developers are doing right now with Quest. We've seen a lot of great videos put out of people manipulating hand tracking for physics-based interactions, but also UI, mapping things in the real world also. We've just reached the tip of the iceberg for the potential of hand tracking on a mass user device like the Quest.
And you can install some very basic demos inside Quest if you're curious about what hand tracking can do. Oculus has not yet released anything official on the Quest store using hand tracking. They didn't expect developers to have anything ready until this year.
SideQuest. There's an update. SideQuest.
I'm looking for it. Yeah, they had a big announcement this morning. It seems like they're going to start having paid games in SideQuest, which is interesting because it is really the alternative to the official Quest store, and they've never charged for anything. There have been games for sale, but they've been through itch.io, and they just simply link to that store. It seems like they will be having a buy button in there, which is fine, which is great as long as Oculus is still cool with this and they don't start banning SideQuest or side loading, which knock on wood they'll never do.
A couple other updates. Want to mention Budget Cuts 2, which was released late last year, has now been updated with modifiers, so you can kind of play the game as you want. And also, most importantly, free locomotion, which was one of my biggest requests for this. And this might get me to actually get through the game because I mean, it's an option. I don't know. The game probably isn't designed with that for all the challenges of the puzzles, but I like the fact that it's there. Let's me get into those precise positions where I want to peek around the corner, and then use the teleport mechanic after that. I feel less restricted.
Me too.
Budget Cuts 2, I just felt, and Budget Cuts 1, constrained without being able to walk around.
The game for sale in SideQuest is To the Top.
To the Top,
which was famously denied by Oculus to be admitted into the Quest store. However, they did say they would welcome their sequel, and so they're friendly. But they had ported To the Top to Quest, and it wasn't accepted. Well, now you'll be able to not only play it, but you can actually support the developers by buying it in side quests. This is fantastic. I hope to see the same from Climby, and knock on wood, the same from Jet Island.
Jet Island. You love Jet Island.
I love Jet Island.
Yeah, speaking of free and wild locomotion.
The best. That is the best locomotive. Okay, Echo VR is the best, but in terms of like moving around on a planet, I love Jet Island.
Yeah. We've been wondering when major animation studios would start experimenting in VR for something to be seen publicly. I know Pixar's announced and Disney's announced that they have some projects going on, but one of them is Frozen 2 will have a VR short that will be unveiled at Sundance this month.
What is a VR short these days? Is it Henry? Is that?
I think it's more with like Dear Angelica. I think Dear Angelica so far is my pinnacle of VR storytelling and VR short.
And it's 360, right? Why is it? Is that all that it is? It's a story that happens all around you?
Very true, because Henry was converted to just 360 video, and you could enjoy the story the same way. You never really did interaction. Now, Henry had some programmed aspects where Henry would keep his eyes on you as you move your head around. The eye contact stuff is something that you need VR to do, and with eye tracking, even better. But you're right, it's mostly 3D kind of 360 video.
Will you embody one of the characters? Like, will you be Olaf and you're walking around interacting with people?
I don't know. I don't know.
You guys aren't going to get it because you haven't seen Frozen 2.
Nope.
You won't get it.
No, I've seen only Frozen 1. He dreams of summer.
That's right.
What does the snowman do in summer?
Yeah. He does a recap of Frozen 1 in Frozen 2. That's one of the funniest parts of the whole movie. Just letting you know. He's still a hit. Josh Gad.
Yeah. I wish we were at Sundance to see it. I hope there will be opportunities for other people to see it. I think it's a cost thing. Like, why invest money in these projects if you're not going to let people see it?
Well, I just don't get it. I mean, I don't know what this is. I'm glad they're experimenting with VR. I just don't think of VR as being a passive experience. That's why I don't want to necessarily see movies.
Maybe created in VR.
I mean, there's the argument to be made that like you could be in a theater watching a performance, and that would be more like real life. But I don't know if I want to go through the struggle and discomfort of wearing a headset in order to experience a passive experience like that.
But that's a short-term problem. The friction of headsets is something that you presume.
But it's a current problem.
It is. But they still got to work on the content.
Maybe that's it.
While the problem's a thing. I mentioned experiments in Quest and hand tracking. Greg Madison on Twitter posted a video sharing his experiments. I believe it's his experiments using Unity and the Quest and mapping his own real space, real living room in a Quest environment, including a tabletop surface that could be used as a augmented reality interface.
Yeah, it's cool how he grabs the map and moves it around. This is really, really cool. I mean, it's interesting that he's using VR for this because this really is more of an augmented reality experience.
Yeah, and of course you mismap anything. You mismap the Guardian system and any type of misalignment screws this up completely.
Yeah.
Obviously with the latency as well, but it went viral and the credit should be there. I don't think this is how we'll be using VR and hand tracking in the future.
No, I think that this is more of a AR proof of concept.
I do think that there's opportunity to do some local SLAM, and SLAM is already local, but in terms of using the cameras on a VR system, if you're going to have some type of pass-through, to also add geometry, which they kind of do right now with the reprojection.
It wouldn't be this high fidelity.
It wouldn't be this high fidelity, but also just recognizing basically flat surfaces.
Yes,
right?
Please.
Like right now, VR menus, as people have experimented with, UI has been kind of, raycasting and pinching and grabbing things and maybe popping up a UI on your hand, your virtual hand. But if it could use SLAM to see that there is a flat surface big enough, whether it's a wall or a tabletop, to then plant a menu on, then having that tactile feedback based in the real world in some type of pass-through VR, AR would be certainly a different type of UI and UX. Something I would love to try out.
Man, it's so exciting. This technology, I love being at the beginning of it.
We've been waiting for a long time, and still a long ways to go.
We were at the beginnings of video games for a long time in the early 80s, and it continued to be exciting.
Like it still is. Yeah. Iron Man VR, which we're excited to play on PSVR, delayed until May 15th. Again, same thing goes. Delayed game is potentially be good. Rush game will never be good.
Wait, I'm sorry. Iron Man's delayed till when?
May 15th.
Okay, just a couple months.
Yeah. And are we ready to talk about, Oculus Go, permanent price cut, $149.
Yeah.
It's going to go away soon.
And removed from their enterprise thing. So they're not offering like super corporate deals where they'll be able to make cool experiences. They're pushing them to Quest.
What's back in stock, though, is the Vive Deluxe Audio.
Don't say that, because you know it's not going to be by the time this airs.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It went back on sale a few, it's still available right
It's
now.
worth checking if it's available.
It is?
It's still, for here, add to cart.
All right, good luck, people.
$99. One of the best upgrades you can get to a Quest.
Does that add to cart button work for you? It doesn't work for me.
Uh-oh. Maybe not. Worth checking.
Okay.
And something we'll definitely be asking HCC about.
Yeah, it was actually in stock on Amazon, according to Reddit, too. But yeah, so there's the weird stock coming back. Keep your eye out.
Path of the Warrior co-op launched.
Oddly, you and I both tried it the day it was supposed to come out, and we didn't have the option in our menus. So we will, maybe
It's got to update.
got it. Well, you just installed it that day, so I don't know.
Headset, yeah.
I'm sure that was a few days ago. It's probably live. We should try it. I look forward to trying it. Co-op's fun.
Yep. And now we get to our Valve news. The non-Alyx news is that Half-Life games, no Left 4 Dead 3. They've come out and said.
You mean no Left 4 Dead VR?
They're not working on Left 4 Dead VR.
Yeah.
And it's not something they had been working on. There was like that rumors that it was their next secret project. It is not one of the VR games they're working on.
Right.
And also, until Half-Life Alyx comes out, the entire suite of traditional Half-Life flat screen games from Half-Life 2, Episode 2, that will be free to play on Steam.
That's huge news.
Yeah, including the mods too, so you can actually play the VR versions, the VR fan-made versions.
Yeah, you mean on Steam or on Quest?
On
Either,
Steam.
right?
Yeah,
because you can play Half-Life 1 on Quest by sideloading the executable and then copying the source files over there.
Yep.
If you own it on Steam, and it's completely legit and it's wonderful. The reason why they came out with Left 4 Dead 3 isn't happening is because there was a weird leak from HTC or somebody.
Yeah, I think there was a PowerPoint presentation on an HTC roadmap that said in 2020, VR is going to be big because of things like Half-Life Alyx. And then also they threw up their Left 4 Dead VR.
LFD3 or something.
But it was purely speculative on their part.
What a weird thing to happen.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they came out saying, we're just guessing. We really don't know anything.
Yeah.
But clearly, it's not happening. Yeah. I don't think Valve is just doing a red herring.
And then let's talk about the Half-Life Alyx AMA. So you can go to Reddit right now, read the full thread. It's a long thread. The Half-Life Alyx team spent a couple hours answering questions. They dropped a lot of information. We haven't even had a chance to parse through all of it yet, but I'm going to go through some of the highlights, including the fact that they are on track, that they believe, for release in March.
All right.
The game is done. They're not planning on shipping a full SDK. They'd like to see it released at some point, but it's a ton of work because Source 2 is a new tool set. And this is how they've done SDKs in the previous Source release. Making the game takes precedence, and after that, they look at what's next. The game is done. 80 developers at Valve are working on it, their biggest development team yet. Playtesters at Valve have played through the entire game multiple times. Right now, they're doing polishing and fixing bugs, which is where they hope to be at this point of the development cycle. They plan on releasing gameplay videos leading up to launch. So in the next month or so, I hope to see gameplay videos to showcase not only gameplay elements, but also VR-specific elements like the different movement options. So they address the movement options. What else did they say? Locomotion and comfort features are all done, including things like seated gameplay, left-handed mode, and they have almost all of their accessibility work done, but there's a little more, like they want to build in support for one-armed play. So that would make reloading
Really
very different. And they're going to have videos, they said, showing the different locomotion options specifically.
This is interesting. They say they don't render arms for all the good reasons that I think we know about, that we've talked about before. But a lot of people miss that. I think you're missing the point. But they say that they actually do simulate invisible arms.
Yes.
Which connect from your hands back to your HMD. And we use those to detect impossible things like completely closing a drawer over your wrist.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So they do IK, but the IK is not shown because you don't want the mismatch in the visuals if they can't precisely show where your elbows are, for example. The barnacles, you saw them in the tested video. Some more details. They say they don't kill you instantly, but you'll deal with them in familiar ways. And
barnacles, what do you mean? The things at the ceilings?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And the opportunities afforded by VR give you new methods to use against them. They don't move the player. So they don't grab you and pull your head up. You just take damage while you're underneath them and the tongue is on you because they don't want to disorient you and make you uncomfortable.
I hope they're not playing it too safe because I don't think I'd have a problem with that.
You wish that was an option to turn on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It doesn't sound like that's going to be there.
Yeah.
And they said, as with many aspects of working on this game, they had to find new ways to make well-worn mechanics and other Half-Life staples into the specific framework of VR. Now, they said specifically, Combine soldiers return, but in a form you've previously seen, as well as new variations that keep the players busy and take advantage of VR. Take advantage of VR. How, Jeremy?
I know.
Creatures respond to audio more than others. Some creatures.
Respond to audio.
Some creatures respond to audio more than others. They don't want to spoil anything, but there's an example of this that they're particularly excited about.
Oh, wow.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Microphone use?
That would be cool. Because I haven't
breathing,
I haven't
hold
seen that
your
yet.
breath?
Whistling.
Oh, that'd be neat. Like if you have to do a certain thing.
Throw your voice.
Or if it's part of it, could there be an audio puzzle?
I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily audio that you create. You could be knocking things over the physics object. And
Yeah, I mean,
audio
distraction is the easy way to think about it, but
yeah. And then they answered why there's no jump in the game, because the game includes ability to mantle in continuous motion. So if you need to get over an obstacle like a crate or sofa or whatever, you just mantle, which means you kind of leap over it by just walking over it.
Wow, somebody is asking about horror in VR, and Tristan, one of the devs, says, personally, I admit I cannot deal with head crabs in general, and definitely not in VR. If I'm testing the game and I'm in an area where I know one of those things is around, I will remove the headset, hold it off my face as I play in 2D on a monitor.
what?
I mean, you can't talk about that, but you encountered a head crab yourself, I would imagine.
Many.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so many responses here. It's well worth reading. Weapons. The weapons all require only one hand, but they can be optionally grabbed and steadied by your offhand. They really wanted to focus on simultaneous two-handed play throughout the game, so we need the player to always be easily able to have a free hand. So that's why there's not traditional two-handed weapons like a shotgun you hold with two hands that you brace. And they keep the free hand busy with the gravity gloves and movement, world interactions, flashlight, and so on.
Maybe we should get this game. It sounds pretty good.
What's it called again?
Half-Life Alyx.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll pre-order it.
I think it came pre-ordered with your index purchase.
Oh, what a deal.
What a deal indeed. That might do it for our episode this week. I think I might have an episode of projections in the week. Depends how far along I get through The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, which I've been playing, and for a review. They said it's a 15-hour game, and it is a long game so far. That's all I can say about it right now.
Let us know what you think of Picard.
Yeah. Apologies for those of you who have not had a chance to watch it. We did put our spoiler section early on.
If I could make a suggestion for the audio listeners, maybe you could post in the show notes the time code where our discussion ends. Because they won't have the benefit of the red screen.
Yeah, you know what? What I might do is I might just record a separate audio segment to stick at the front of the episode to say we have spoilers in the beginning. Jump to this time code.
Yeah.
An audio warning for the pre-spoilers. That will require some edit work. We got a lot of great stuff on the site. It's, what is this, Thursday when this is coming out? Ooh, you got to check the video that we're supposed to put up on Wednesday that we had teased on Still Untitled is actually coming up Thursday. Hope you guys enjoy.
Is this it?
That. It will be this Thursday.
Alameda?
Part of it. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And a lot of good stuff. I guess all I can say. Anything else you guys want to promote, talk about?
My daughter's turning 10 on Friday.
Oh. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And then your
My son's
birthday.
turning 13 a couple weeks later.
How does that work? Like in terms of they
Like
having
biologically,
birthdays?
or
no?
what are we talking
how
about?
does it work well or not well in terms of siblings having
That's great.
birthdays that are so close?
Well, for a couple weeks, they're only 2 years apart, and I think she enjoys that.
Oh,
know.
the younger one.
Yep.
Enjoys it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
they're still maybe just a little too close to Christmas, but besides that, everything,
Wow.
it's all good.
Okay. And do we have an outro this week potentially?
Oh, right.
Jeremy's gonna look for that while he does that. I'm gonna filibuster.
I was looking for
a
more
little bit.
Half-Life Alyx info.
I think in the future, if we get a chance to recap Picard episodes, we might do it toward the end of the show and have a dedicated segment. So if you are audio engineer, audio editing, not mixing, and you want to create a segment, interstitial music piece for us for a Picard discussion, really welcome it. I'm sure there's plenty of fodder from this episode. Here, let's all take a stab at saying "make it so" and engage. Make it so. Engage.
You can't do both.
All right, go ahead.
Engage.
Tea. Earl Grey.
Sorry.
Wait, did you get in the way of
Sorry.
my...
I thought that was all you were saying, but you were doing the dramatic pause. You go. You go.
There are 4 lights.
Tea. Earl Grey. Hot.
Nok Jock. Is that Klingon? It seems like Klingon.
Darmok. And Jannat. Do, do, do. No, won't go with the inner light song.
Is this thing not loading?
You know what? It's not me. It's tested.com. Apparently the forums are officially down.
Oh.
So we have no outro. I have no access to outros.
Oh, no. Okay. We're going to come up with another place to put the outros if that truly is the case. Or just...
Do you think it's permanently down?
I don't know. If it's not loading, you know what? The site might be down right now, or it could be our internet connection.
Let's see if it tested itself. Yeah, tested itself is not responding.
Yeah. Oof. All right. Sorry, no outro. What you're going to get is what you just heard. Our attempts at Picard sound effects.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week, and we'll be probably discussing Picard episode 2. See you then. Bye.